Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us. We'll start in 2 minutes. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Hello, everyone. Good morning. Hi, everyone. Good morning. Thanks for joining us this morning. So I think we're going to get to it. Would like to thank our special guests for joining us for this event today. We are grateful for your time. And thanks to the student body, to our faculty for being here. And without much ado, I would want to welcome, well, this is the Africa Day Symposium 2024, the first of its kind in IUJ. And so we are glad that you are all part of it and, to witness this event with us. Without wasting much of our time, I would like to welcome Mr. Abdulaziz Idiaro, the president of the IUJ African community, to give a welcome address. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Your Excellencies, CEOs, professors, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon and welcome to Africa Day 2024 at the International University of Japan. It is an honor to address you on behalf of the IUJ African community, representing 28 vibrant African countries. Our team, Educate an African, fit for the 21st century, highlights the importance of building a resilient educational system to achieve the African Union's Agenda 2063. In light of the challenges such as the digital divide and inadequate infrastructure, the COVID-19 pandemic has shown the need for resilient educational systems that can adapt and provide quality education to all. Today, we explore innovative strategies and technologies to transform education in Africa. By enhancing digital infrastructure and fostering public-private partnership, we can make our educational systems more inclusive, equitable, and effective. Our panel discussions, guided by experts, aim to identify actionable solutions to empower our youth and drive Africa's development. Let us engage actively, share experiences, and learn from each other to ensure every African has access to quality education. Thank you for being here. Let's make this the African Day a catalyst for positive change and innovative education. Thank you.
Thank you for that welcome address, Abdulaziz. We'd also like to welcome Professor Hiroshi Kato, Vice President and Dean of the GSIR program faculty, for a keynote speech. Thank you.
Dear representatives of the diplomatic missions to Japan and representatives of JICA and private sector, dear friends, students, and ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us at this very important symposium on education issues in Africa. Since time is very limited, I was given a responsibility to give a keynote speech, but I'd rather give you a welcoming remark, just sending you only one message. And I recently checked the UN website concerning the population of the world at the end of the 21st century. In the year 2100, the world population will be about 11 billion, of which 4.4 billion will be populated in Asia, and another 4.4 billion people will be resided on the African continent. That means at the end of this century, Asia and Africa are two most powerful dominant continents of the world. So what we have to do, work together, is to create a peaceful, prosperous world at the end of the 21st century, and whose main leaders are Asians and Africans. And we are here today located university in Japan, a Japanese university located in Japan, but where a lot of Africans and Asian students are studying together. So I hope today's event will give us an opportunity to discuss what we should do together to realize a peaceful, prosperous world at the end of the 21st century. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kato Sensei. So without wasting much of our time, I think we can get right to it. We would like to start with the first panel session. And on our panel, as I would like to welcome our panelists, Ms. Genevieve Edna Palo, represented by Mr. Christopher Garba, as the Ghanaian ambassador to Japan. Please, let's give him a round of applause. Yes, please. Yeah. I would like to welcome Mr. Mochizuki Hiroshi, the Senior Deputy Director, Education and Social Security Group, JICA. Thank you. Yes, please. I would like to welcome Professor Hiroshi Kato, Vice President, IUJ. And I would also like to welcome Mr. Wembe Elder Salvador Bumba, a PMPP student within the community. Thank you. And finally, so our moderator, Mr. George Omiro, please. The floor is yours. Thanks.
Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining in. You look very beautiful from up here. So just want to welcome you to this a very intuitive discussion that we're going to have this particular afternoon, I believe so. And so our topic of discussion in this first session is building resilient education system in Africa, ensuring inclusive, lifelong quality and relevant learning for the 21st century. And so on to our first panelist, Mr. Christopher Garba. Would you just share with us some of the ideas that you have on the strategies and initiatives that we can implement by the government of Africans to ensure that stakeholders ensure quality assurance to teacher education, irrespective of which African state? Thank you.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon. in as much as we have challenges where there are teachers who don't have these licenses well written, but for you to be able to teach in a government institution that is recognized by government, you need to have these teaching licenses.
Thank you so much, Mr. Christopher, such giving us the landscape of what is happening in Ghana. And I believe that is now the trajectory that this conversation is taking. And let's now move to our own Professor Kato. And I'll just ask this, Professor, what are some of the deliberate efforts being undertaken in agriculture education and technology in Africa, considering it's projected that the economic growth through agriculture, economic growth in Africa by 2050, we assume that there will be a multiplication. So what are we looking forward to it, being that you are so interested in this issue of agriculture in Africa?
And one of my colleagues, a Japanese student, who is in my African course, recently came up with data that although the African leaders agreed in 2001 declaring the Comprehensive African Agricultural Plan program and committed to they have many of the countries in Africa haven't fulfilled that responsibility. And so the subcountries, although despite the discourse shared by African governments, are not doing adequate effort to improve agricultural research. And this is the one way one country should do. And when we look at the history of Asian development, we tend to believe that ASEAN countries, Indonesia, Singapore, Taiwan, they started to develop their own after they started export-led industrialization. But the fact is, prior to this era of export-led industrialization, there was a steady progress of agriculture in many Asian countries. So I cannot overemphasize the importance of research and
Thank you so much, Professor Kato, for such an intuitive input on the landscape of Asia and Africa at large. I'll move so quickly now to ask Mr. Mochizuki Hiroshi-san. What are some of the policies that have proven effective in other regions that could be adapted to the African context to improve educational outcomes? Thank you.
Question, and it really depends on the context of each country for applying the policies to implement. But from the JICA's point of view, we are providing the math and science education project. And also we are involving the community participation towards the educational development. And in Senegal, actually, we are collaborating with those cooperation projects to support for academic achievement in math and science. And also we are involving the community participation. Through those collaborations, we have the positive impact through the impact survey compared to the ex-ante and ex-post evaluation achievement. Not only the academic achievement, but also the school environment is also improved. So not only for the subject itself, but also the involvement with the community participation is quite important for effective education cooperation.
Thank you so much, Hiroshi-san, for that input and what JICA is doing at large. And I think now the conversation takes a different twist. You say new broom sweeps clean. So Helda Wembe, you just came from Africa recently. And so just tell us, how is Africa prepared to move away from traditional education practices like standardized testing and embrace new approaches such as competency-based education programs? Thank you.
you ask me in terms of human capacity, yes, we are ready. As you can see, we are all here learning. We are ready to take this knowledge back home. And there are, for example, there's a research done in 2020 that showed that teachers in African countries, they have a positive mindset towards these practices. However, they lack professionalism, they lack support. And that brings us to our second part, that side of the question, which is in terms of infrastructure and policy making. Unfortunately, for that side, we are quite not there just yet. A few more things need to be done. And one of these is to bring policy makers and stakeholders from the private sector together. They need to start working together in order to make this happen. And there are some initiatives which are very good that can be copied, can be reproduced and replicated everywhere in Africa, not just in Africa. For example, there is a school in Nigeria which is the entire teaching system is based on students don't just learn, they do it. They go to school, they farm, they harvest, they sell their harvesting, they buy their money, and they learn how to save, how to reinvest. So why do we have projects like this all over Africa? This would help, most definitely help develop or at least tackle some issues with food. So these are the kind of things that need to be pushed forward, not just by government, but to involve also outside stakeholders to make sure that Africa is really going in the right direction. So in terms of human capacity, yes, we are ready. Infrastructure and policy making, we need some more extra work. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Elder, for such an input. And I think the underscoring factor is that we should ensure building human capacity as a factor that is very empirical in ensuring we implement competence-based teaching program. And moving on to Mr. Christopher, could you give us an insight of what is happening in Ghana in a way that they want to transform rote learning to this kind of skill-based oriented approaches? Thank you.
Thank you very much for the question. You know, to answer this question, when I was in school, that was about 20 years ago, most of the things that I learned has to do with a lot of what my colleagues and used to say PMQ. Now, there are a lot of reforms that are going on in Ghana that has to do with a lot of competency-based training, where it is not just about learning the theory, but the ability to apply the theory that we learned. And so a lot of reforms are going on, especially because there is a lot of collaboration with other countries, other institutions. And so, for instance, we have the Tibet, where because of these reforms, those who go to these Tibet institutions bring taught practical things that applies to what they are learning. So at the end of the day, you don't just graduate with the theory, but the ability to
Thank you so much.
Now, if I had my brother, the challenge we are having, which I don't want to delve into the politics of it, but the challenge we are having in Africa has to do with the technology. And you and I know very well that most of the time, in as much as I want to sound very diplomatic, but most of the technologies that come to us very late. So they come to us, our people are able to apply them, but they are obsolete. It means that by the time a certain technology is coming to a Tibet institution to use, America would have gone or Japan would have gone ahead 20 years. And so that technology has already become obsolete. And that's one of the challenges that we are having in Africa and in Ghana, besides. Now, and we are also having industry partners. This time in Ghana, unlike where students are just trained and sent into the market, it is no more so. Now, the industries are coming to the schools and telling them this is what we want. These are the capacities we want. These are the kind of students we want. And so, you know, studies or courses are designed specifically to suit that particular industry. And so students are graduating and already there is a job market for them because that is what the industry wants. So there's a lot of reforms that are going on. Then again, the challenge, my brother didn't tell you that it's more about molding facilities, not just having the facility, but is it molding? Is this something that, for instance, I've spoken to some students from here who, through the initiative of DICA, MEST, who tell me, listen, Mr. Gaba, because I handle education, and so I do a lot of interaction with students, and they'll tell you, I don't know how I'm going to survive that moment because the technology is not there. How do I get it back? Because most of the things that I've learned here, I should be able to apply back home. And so the challenge we have over the years has to do with all the facilities and be able to, you know, implement some of the things that when these opportunities are given by JICA and when our students or our compatriots go back home, they can be able to apply some of it. I must say that government is really the best. The government has really brought about a lot of innovations in technology, but we can do more. There's more room for improvement.
Thank you so much. I think Ghana deserves a round of applause for such an input they're doing in it. Let's give Ghana some round of applause. Thank you so much. I'll move so swiftly to ask Mr. Hiroshi-san from JICA that what are some of the measures that can be put in place to ensure lifelong learning and continuous professional development of educators in Africa? Team.
First question is, what is the impact of international aid on the quality and accessibility of education in Africa? My answer is that the result is mixed. First, it is mixed because the outcome, the progress, depends on the country. There are some countries where progress has been remarkable, like Botswana in Ghana, and in other countries, the progress has been disappointing as well. And so it depends on the country's context. And it is mixed. Another what extent that the contribution of international aid has been mixed with that. In some aspects of education,
actually, some statistics say that 8
we don't have enough funds. Actually, the international system and education has been quite making enough in the world.
Thank you so much, Professor Kato. My directors are really on my neck and I don't want to lose my neck. So that marks us a wrap of this particular session. And so let's just give a round of applause to our panelists. And so thank you so much, Mr. Gaba from Ghana. Thank you so much, Mr. Hiroshi-san. Thanks so much, our honorable professor. And thank you so much, colleague Webe, for participating in this. Thank you so much, audience, for listening. I hope we have picked one or two things and we're going to take them home to implement them. Thank you so much.
Please, let's give our panelists a round of applause again, please. Thank you so much for your knowledge and the insights you shared. That being said, we'd like to start the next panel session. We'd like to welcome His Excellency, Mr. Jean-Antoine Diouf, the Senegalese ambassador to Japan. We'd also like to welcome Mr. Hiroshi Noro, CEO, Divic Corp. And we would like to welcome Professor Funabashi Gaku, a GSIM professor. Yeah. And then Ms. Mbali Mchali, IDP student in IUJ. And also our moderator, Mr. Abdulaziz Diaro. Please, welcome.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. On this second panel session, we are trying to see how we will navigate the 21st century dynamics of IT and innovation in education. And it's really timely for us. Now, let me go straight to the points, given the challenges of time that we have to just. I want to start with His Excellency, Ambassador Diouf. With your extensive experience in international diplomacy, and given that this is your second time in Japan, what are the innovative financing models that can be employed to support the scaling of educational technology in Africa, given the precarious situation that we find ourselves?
Well, in my humble view, I think the financing models are manifold, but first of all,
Thank you so much for that insightful contribution. Given your expertise, Professor Funabashi, with your vast experience lecturing students from over 68 countries in Africa, from around the world, in addition to working on JICA projects, could you shed some light on the question, looking at Japan's experience, what specific technological innovations or policies can African educational systems adopt to enhance learning? Thank you.
Answering your question, what kind of technological innovation is necessary? What kind of somehow they consistent, they know how they can improve their knowledge, their understanding, and really considering the situation of their life, or if they maybe something. Thank you, Professor. We are looking at global perspectives. This global aspect. Thinking this down. I'm going to where foundation is no foundation people. Yes. We are providing IT education in the we are together very good. We are developing. What do you think? What role do edtech startups play in shaping the future of education in Africa? And how can they be supported? Okay. Talking about. So I will answer from that perspective, specifically in the areas of higher education and professional learning. Yes, it's of course, the tech startup is possible to contribute, provide self-study contents, such as videos, certain of course, now from speaker. However, I felt a long time, it's important to fix or how to very important to fix the markets. Therefore, in addition to provide the learning platform, we should have real world. Use of what they have learned to solve problems around them and support these ideas with policies that encourage the entire government. Very important things. For example, my boot camp in Japan, we are providing graduation projects for Japanese students to solve the rural area Japanese areas problem to solve. For example, traditional industry, non-digital transformated, so that they strongly want to use the IT and digital transformation in there, but no one support them. And maybe African side, African local industry is also the same situation in rural area in Japan. This is my point of view, so that to provide the real experience as a real project to how to solve by a tech is very important educational point. Maybe this is my point of view. That's why I am challenging myself like that for projects. Yeah, there's no point of in simply increasing the number of graduates. And we should provide education that leads to people who can play an active role on the society how to solve the problem.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that. It's really insightful and it's enlightening that you're actually doing something in the rural areas and urban. So we can actually get some few ideas to actually implement in Africa from there. I'm excited to hear from Ambassador Diop again. No, sorry, please. Before I go there, let me go Mbali. I want to go to Mbali, sorry. Miss Mbali, having lived in Africa, worked in Africa, studied in Africa for both your first degree and your advanced studies. You understand Africa, you breathe Africa, you look Africa. What lessons, because you've been in Japan now for over a year, so you can actually compare. What lessons can African education system take from the global shift towards online learning due to the COVID-19 and pandemic?
Thank you so much, Ilyasa. I think based on some of the experiences that we shared, speaking from a South African point of view, but I think this is shared throughout a lot of the African countries, when COVID hit us, it caught us very much. I think at the time, we were very much based on a personal and physical education-based system, and we were not necessarily expecting, nobody was, the whole world did not think something like that would have happened in that, in that manner. So we had to find a way where technology had to bridge the gap. It was difficult. We basically had to, from a face-to-face, now move to working behind screens, and screens that did not exist for a lot of people, especially people from disadvantaged backgrounds, and people that did not have access to not only just a smartphone, which is something that we think is very basic, but to also something like fiber and data. So a lot of the governments, what they did then was they introduced data-free systems, and they had to very quickly provide those access to those digital platforms where students could actually further their studies. There were gaps. We do know that classes of 2020 really did get a lot of strain in terms of their academic year. But definitely things were done to sort of kind of improve the situation. And I personally feel that it's things that, having been in a first world country, having experienced countries where technology really is a major factor, it's something that would have been quicker to uptake. The solutions would have come quicker had we had a reference, or had we tapped into some of the references that some of people like ourselves that have had an opportunity to experience. It would have just facilitated the process in a faster way. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very much. You raised a very excellent point on maybe disaster preparedness and sharing experience to actually, that's a very smart one. Thank you. I'm excited to hear from Ambassador Diop. In your role, you represent your country as an ambassador in Japan on education and every other thing. And on this matter, as I said earlier, this is your second time in Japan. So you have learned from Japan, you have learned from many other countries. How can you ensure that technological innovations in education are inclusive and reach the most marginalized populations?
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. President Jaro. I think that, first of all, we need to integrate inclusion in all our strategies. In Senegal, we have a law in which we try to promote people living with disabilities to have access to certain facilities, including in terms of IT. And the second thing is to try and see how we could reach out those people with disabilities, and also the communities disadvantaged, including the rural communities. And this is something very important for our countries, given the digital gap that exists between the rural area and the urban area. And this also implies that we invest heavily in infrastructure. Professor Kato a while ago mentioned some demographic figures in Africa in terms of perspective. Now we have almost 1,400,000,000 people living in Africa. 6,000 of them do not have electricity. So it implies that those who do not have electricity, they cannot be included in terms of outreaching of digital outreaching. So we need to bridge that gap. We also need to bridge the gap in terms of connectivity. People living in rural areas and those who living in the urban areas, and even that connectivity also need to be like stabilized, because sometimes it's very erratic. So this also we need also to address it if we want also to have a better inclusion in our policies.
Thank you so much for your insights and explanations. It's really compelling, Ambassador. Moving forward, we are fortunate to have you with us, Professor Funabashi. You have made significant contributions to various fields. Particularly, your classes are usually very impactful and exciting in IUJ. Some of them are policies we can introduce in our country, and we actually learn from other countries. So it really makes it an all-round education. Now, how can multilateral agencies, governments, and private sectors collaborate more effectively to drive innovation in education?
Yes, thank you so much. By the way, you don't take my course this time.
I don't believe what you said, but answering your questions, well, so the nature of the innovation has not changed for the last more than 100 years. Now, the important thing for the necessary part of the innovation is a new combination of the different ideas. But when you combine new ideas, you have to understand the real situation and the factors of that problems first. Otherwise, the combination does not directly address to those problems. No matter what organizations, multilateral agencies, or governments, or private sectors, they have to be contribute to the people's children's education, so that those children or the young people who learn something, gain some knowledge, gain some ability to understand the situation and the root causes of that kind of problems, and also how to combine the new knowledges for solving that issues. That kind of attitudes and abilities is important. So probably I'm not answering your questions directly, but that is something that each organization has to consider, how they can raise that kind of abilities for the young people and children at the educational institution.
Thank you so much, Professor. Next, we'll hear from Mr. Noro, who is a leading expert in ICT education with real projects and team in Africa. How can data analytics and artificial intelligence be leveraged to personalize the learning and improve educational outcomes, which would actually be able to use shared knowledge across different channels? Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you so much.
As a perspective of the vocation training and the higher education field, by my experience and point of view, yeah, even in Japan, the personalized and the data analysis and machine learning in education, it seems the system is insufficient and has not yet been effective yet. This is my point of view. Yeah, but some of the products, for example, the Udemy and Udacity, like that services already fitted and a lot of data they're using. But other services, not a great effective effect, not yet. This is my point of view. Instead of, we should focus on finding talent that the needs of the industry and providing opportunity for experience to do so. I think efforts such as writing papers at university would be good. Rather than personalization through AI, we should focus on the understanding what value can be achieved by learning in each industry.
Thank you so much, Noro-san. Lastly, I would like to invite Ms. Mali to share your valuable insights. In what ways can mobile technology be utilized to overcome barriers to access the remote and underserved areas that Noro-san tried to address earlier?
I think I'm just going to reference to some of the things that I previously mentioned as well. I feel that the question was covered briefly in what I said previously, because we need to look at not just, I mean, mobile technology on its own is great, but it needs the infrastructure to come with it. And that's one of the ways that we can definitely start working on, such that when things that do find us metaphorically with our pants down, we'd be able to, react in a quick way, and we'd be able to recover quickly. And I think that basically is the basis of what I said previously, and it sort of covers that point as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. In one sentence, how can Africa incorporate technology to advance education? Then who would like to take that first? Because we have a few seconds to go, a few minutes to go, 30 seconds, in 30 seconds. Let me take it again. In one short sentence, how can Africa incorporate tech to advance education?
Well, if I may try. Well, for me, the setting a clear blueprint is very important to know where you're heading and how you're going to head, how you're going to reach that objective. Fortunately, we have on the continental level, the continental education strategy for Africa, which is sort of, we can pave the way. So it's important also that the countries, when they are defining their own blueprint and policies, that they align. This is first. The second one is to, of course, see how we can finance it and also streamline it to our financing capabilities. The third one is to have good governance, because governance is key in that sector, whether it in terms of financing, also in terms of assessment. This is my point.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Please let's give a round of applause to our panelists one more time. Yeah, thanks for the insightful discussion. And so before we're nearing the end of our of the event. Well, before we do that, we'd like to invite Mr. Zuga Selim, the Second Secretary Political, representing the Ambassador of Kenya to Japan for closing remarks. Thank you.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I wish to convey greetings from Ambassador Arthur Ndambi as Charge d'Affaires, and also to congratulate the student body, the African student body, for organizing this, and also for the indulgence of the leadership of International University of Japan, represented here by Professor Kato, for allowing us to also grace this occasion. And I just want to say that personally, as an appreciator of education systems, this has been quite a journey, short, but very sweet, if I should say so. I know that while we all meet here, we are transcending borders. We are miles from home, and we make friends across all this distance. And I hope that it also breaks down the stereotypes that impede us. I just want to touch on a couple of few things that to highlight these two discussions and these two panels. One that I really appreciated was its inclusivity, not exclusivity. It is African solutions to African problems. Don't bring a technology from outside to try and solve a problem that is African without understanding if that technology can fit. And just to highlight one incident that we had a ticket symposium that was organized in Tokyo. But the organizer asked us to register, and on the website, we had to put our names in hiragana. We cannot. So the whole African Diplomatic Corps did not participate. So it negated the entire event. But also, one key thing that I took out of this was we must have data-driven solutions. We cannot have political-based solutions. We must have social, economic-based solutions, things that can drive us together. And through all this, we must do it in alignment with each other. I know of a case study in Kenya and Tanzania where in the border, because the Kenyan side was closer to the capital, there was lights. But on the Tanzanian side, being far away from the infrastructure, there was no electricity. So you could clearly see at night the physical border. Now, with the regional economic groupings and with the East Africa Cooperation, the community, we do have access to such enabling infrastructure. And one key part that one of the moderators in this last panel said, Ms. Bali, she said, we must roll out, yes, use of technology when COVID came in, but we must have infrastructure that enables that technology. It is not impactful for you to have that technology if you do not have a stable electric grid or energy-based system. So we must have enabling infrastructure to drive the rollout of that technology. But more and more, we must also take care of the marginalized communities. Let us not forget that who is our brother, that who is our sister. And this event, as per se, is exactly that embodiment of the African spirit of Ubuntu. And I want to thank you all for this kind invitation, and also to recognize this African spirit. I can see the colors amongst you all. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Mr. Selin, for that. I will give him one more round of applause. Okay, so thanks to everyone for coming. This brings us to the end of our conversation. Before we leave, we would like to have a group picture with everybody. So can we all come to the front and, get some Okay, everyone, let's gather in front for group pictures. Group picture.